outdoors, he's gonna watch a debate, but not just watch a debate. He has to stop it and wait, and go back and watch again. He's getting straight. Hour 8, he's only been 10 minutes in, he'll aggravate you. So don't watch unless you want to. So don't watch unless you want to. So don't watch unless you want to. So don't watch. This is gonna take a long, long, long time, and we'll visit lots of rabbit holes along the way. We'll talk and we'll learn, we'll flock around and find out. We'll figure out who was right and wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong.
Okay. There's some action. This is a rare early morning, very early morning special. And this is a bonus episode. Because we've been trying to do the hour 2 semifinal recap, but we only reached the official 2-hour mark on the video. But in the spirit of the conversation, the true hour extends past that point. And what's interesting is it's almost like like one of those cliffhangers in a movie where, like, as soon as it's supposed to end, something really exciting happens. And then you want to keep watching. But you can't. You've reached the end of hour 2, you know? So these are the conundrums we find ourselves in. However, if we look at the actual video, the discussion is broken up into sections, and this second hour actually goes up until 2 minutes and it's like 7 seconds, or 2 hours and 7 minutes and 40 something seconds. We don't worry about the seconds. We do worry about the seconds when we're coloring in our minute bars. Then seconds are almost too big. But yeah, these what are we talking about? Oh yeah, right at 2 minutes, we get this banger from Norm. Believe me, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Barelli. And I believe this marks our very first instance of Norm saying Stephen Pestiny's name wrong in funny different ways. So he got his name right, I believe, first. He asked him directly, and then he immediately like repeated his name correctly. What Mr. Bonnell said, blah 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 blah, right? And I think here, right at right at the 2 hour mark, right on cue, Norm says that. And, you know, because leading up to this point, Stephen was being a stinker. He's being a stinky stinker by basically trying to bail Benny out from being just dick slapped by both Moeen and Norm. So the background is that basically Benny was trying to really talk up this Palestinian guy who was really bad and a really evil guy, and he collaborated with Hitler leading up to World War II or during World War II or something. And he had, to some degree, some leadership in some of the Palestinian movements at the time. Benny is trying to like really talk him up as if he was the main guy who represented all Palestinians. And Moeen Rabbani comes back and says, well, there's this other dude who was a Zionist in this Zionist group called the Lehi, and that man ended up being prime minister. The Lehi, 300 people, one of whom happened to become an Israeli prime minister, an Israeli foreign minister. Speaking of Israeli parliament, Yitzhak Shamir proposed an alliance with Nazi Germany in 1941. Shamir proposed, the Lehi proposed. Some people in the Lehi proposed, of which Shamir was a prominent leader. Okay. So, he's saying, this Zionist guy also, this group was also Zionist. It's a red herring to bring up a parallel example. So, I think we may have done this before, but let's do it again. What's a red herring? What is it? It is a dried smoked herring, turned red by the smoke. Look over there at the smoke. That's what it is. Misdirection. From the practice of drawing a red herring across a trail to confuse hunting dogs, something that distracts attention from the real issue. Okay. So I want to say it's while I disagree with the argument, I'd say it's a fair argument to make on its own. Depending on what the topic is. Because if we're talking about Zionist ideology prior to 1948, I don't think this would be considered a red herring. It's one piece of a puzzle, right? And if the other side thinks this is just cherry picking, like if he's like, okay, that was one Zionist organization, and he does actually mention this. He says there's only 300 people in this one, while another party had 30,000 people, right? The Haganah, right? He said 300 people versus the 30,000 belong to the Haganah. Okay. I mean, that's also relevant as as information and a fact that you could throw back and say, like, and then you could argue, like, okay, but those guys weren't representative of Zionism for this reason, that reason, this reason, that reason. Even though one of the guys from that group became prime minister. And I don't know if he's referring to the same person who is both a foreign minister and prime minister, or if there were multiple people. Because, well, he says one of whom. But I don't know. I can't imagine there was only one, right? Only one of those 300 became the number one position. I don't know. But anyway, whatever. They're kind of going back and forth, but I don't agree that this is a red herring. And then Moeen Rabbani replies back, which I kind of tend to agree with, is that if this is a red herring, then the shit you're saying about al-Husseini is a red whale. Right? Because he's saying al-Husseini was a really bad guy, but was not representative of Palestinians in the general Palestinian perspective at all, right? There's a large degree, like there was a lot of different movements and groups, and he did have leadership and perspective. Like there were socialist Palestinian movements, you know, and all other ideologies. So yeah, no, it's like you could potentially have something to go back and forth and argue about. Like it would be kind of interesting, I think, as a listener, to hear them just like trade stories, like tell me about the different major parties on either side and what they believed. And like, if, you know, theoretically, if Benny could, he's like, well, what about this party? They had this many members and they advocated for peace and justice for all. You know, or he could, you know, point out some nasty party on the other side and say, well, these were this party and they had this many members and they used to say this and that. and just have them trading blows back and forth, right? That would be kind of an interesting debate. And we could just count up all the atrocities and just like score it out. To me, that sounds like a more it sounds like something I could really like bite into and draw and you know, we could figure it out like objectively who built a bigger case by just like, okay, which country had the most based parties and the most worst parties in their movements across the years, across the history. And we could just sort of like make a graph from like, you know, from based at the top to totally whack at the bottom. And then just see how it all comes out in the data. But Benny is a coward. And he says, this is a red herring. And then right after saying it's a red herring, well, he just continues talking about it and defending it. So it seems like just saying a red herring sometimes itself is a kind of the red herring. Like instead of actually dragging the fish across the trail to confuse the dogs, you just say like, "Oh, someone dragged a fish across the trail to distract the dogs," but in fact no one did. So then you're like all like on edge, looking out, making sure that the dogs don't go after something. Watch out! I think they landed a red herring here. So no, doggies, no. That's probably just the red herring you're smelling. Come, doggy. No, bad. And the dog's like, I smelled the real other thing I'm supposed to get. I what? By the way, in this red herring analogy, what is it the dog is trying to fight, and why would it be like, oh, there's a fish instead? You know what I mean? This is just about writing. This isn't actually about herrings. Hold on. Red herring expression meaning. I think we'll try a good old Wikipedia. They usually know. Give a good background on things like words and expressions. Ooh. A red herring may be used intentionally, as in mystery fiction, or as part of rhetorical strategies in politics, or may be used in argumentation inadvertently. Okay, here he goes. Having used a strong-smelling smoked fish to divert and distract hounds from chasing a rabbit. That's the answer. That's the question I had. What was the dog trying to get where he was like, oh, I'll just have this smoked? So they smoke it. I bet that was good. Kipper is a whole herring, a small, oily fish that's been split in a butterfly fashion from head to tail along the dorsal ridge, gutted, salted, pickled, cold smoked over smoldering wood chips. All right. All right. Strong smell. That's a kipper. And is a red herring like, should I say red kipper? Is there different kinds? All three types of smoked herring. All three are types of smoked herring. Kippers, bloaters, and bucklings. Kippers are split, gutted, and then cold smoked. Bloaters are cold smoked whole. Bucklings are hot smoked whole. Cold smoked whole, hot smoked whole. Cold smoked whole, hot smoked whole. Cold smoked whole, split, gutted. Okay. So I don't know. What do you prefer? Cold smoked? What is cold smoking? Cold smoked. Smoking is the process of flavoring, browning, cooking, or preserving food, particularly meat, fish, and tea, by exposing it to smoke. Okay, but what is cold? Cold smoking meat should not be attempted at home. Cold smoking meat should only be attempted by personnel certified in HAP. Okay, warm smoking, 25 to 40 degrees Celsius. Hot smoking cooks and flavors simultaneously. Cold smoking differs from hot smoking in that it does not cook anything. Okay, freezer temperature with smoke. Could you do that? Could you smoke a freezer? A smoky freezer would Does that be weird? Would that work? Smoked out my freezer. Maybe it would have a harder time penetrating the food if it's like if it's got ice and everything's frozen. Liquid smoke, a product derived from smoke compounds and waters applied to foods through spraying or dipping. Smoke roasting. Sometimes referred to as barbecuing or pit roasting. Gotta stop looking at this stuff. Started with the red herring. All right. As an informal fallacy, the red herring falls in a broad class of relevance fallacies. Unlike the straw man, which involves a distortion of the other party's position, a red herring is a seemingly plausible, though ultimately irrelevant, diversionary tactic. A red herring may be intentional or unintentional. It's not necessarily a conscious intent to mislead. Yeah, I don't know. Especially since Benny Morris was the first one to bring up al-Husseini and then go on and on and on about him. You know? I think it's fair to bring up this this Zionist organization called the Lehi, of which a prime minister emerged, and talk about how they tried to strike a deal with Nazi Germany, and they wrote that they had shared ideological principles with the Nazis. And then Benny says, no, they didn't. No, they didn't share ideological. No, they didn't. And then Norm comes in, frustrated. Why are you doing these things? Of course they said that. But you know what the statement said on the basis of a shared ideology. Why do you say no? And then Benny's defensive. I mean, he's got his fists up like this. Do you think that the Leahy people were Nazis? Is that what you're saying? And then at this point, all three of them are talking over each other. And Norm is saying, I'm saying they said. Moeen says, they said they were. And then Benny has this beautiful, beautiful defense. No, you're saying that. Forget statements. You like to quote things. I do like to quote things, says Norm. But were they Nazis? It's called facts. You like to quote things. Forget statements. You like to quote things. Against the British, that's what they wanted. What did the agreement say? And then now Moeen is also cutting in. He says, well, that's what Haj Amin al-Husseini wanted also. Arms against the British. No, but they didn't. Others in India, it's what the IRA wanted also. Lehi people didn't work in Berlin helping the Nazi regime. No, but this is what Haj Amin al-Husseini did. You know, he was... Okay, yeah, this is Benny. This is what Haj Amin al-Husseini did. He worked in Berlin, right? He went to Berlin and was there in person. You know that he was an anti-Semite. You've probably read some of his works. Yes, he wasn't just anti-British. Yes, and he was also anti-Semitic. He had common ground with Hitler. Simple as that. Moeen doesn't really get his point in at this point. He kind of just says, I think we can agree. Norm says, not every anti-Semite is a Hitlerite. And Norm says Semite. So I'm thinking that it is just an accent thing, and that Benny Morris is not referring to a different, like, slight variation of anti-Semite, which is an anti-Semite. But that's how Benny Morris says it. He says it's an anti-Semite. And then here comes let's before Destiny comes crashing in, let's kind of get a big picture of this, right? Norm is slapping the shit out of him. He's like, that's literally what it said. You're a historian. You know what their agreement said. And he's like, yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but. And then as soon as Rabbani said, okay, when he's like, all the Leahy wanted was arms against the British. That's what they wanted. Moeen Rabbani mentions, well, that's what the other guy wanted too. The guy you were talking about, who's also shitty and worked with Hitler and stuff, but his main purpose was the anti-British versus the anti-Jewish thing, right? So then he kind of gets back into that little spat, and he's also very defensive, and he's just trying to again deflect and talk about Husseini, and trying to draw this distinction. Well, yeah, sure, the Leahys may have signed an agreement with them that said that they had a shared ideology, but they didn't go to Berlin. It's okay, fine, whatever. They're duking it out. But he mentions, like, just because someone's anti-Semitic doesn't mean they're a Hitlerite. So a Hitler follower. All right. So here comes Pestiny Morelli to just butt in and try to bail out Benny. Bailing Benny, bail you out. Gonna figure out why these guys are yelling at you. He says he literally worked with the Nazis to recruit people. He wasn't just a guy posting. And Norm says, and he was absolutely revolting, disgusting human being. There's some happening here. So Benny's trying to say, like, oh, the anti-Semitism, it's a huge problem happening here. Actually, I want to check this. I don't actually remember if I got these colors right. Who says, but the problem is you're saying? So this is 159.42 or 24.
You're saying that Hussein was his influence. You're saying the movie.
That part.
He literally worked with the Nazis to recruit people. He wasn't just a guy posting.
And he was an absolutely revolting, disgusting human being.
There's some happening here.
But the problem is you're saying that Hussein was his influence. You're saying the movie was...
I don't even...
Okay, yeah. This looks right. We have the... It's hard with the over-talking. But yeah, this is where it kind of really kicks off. So this is where we're going to start the official, like, analysis. I don't even understand. Of all the crimes you want to ascribe to the Palestinian people, trying to blame them directly, indirectly or indirectly 3 times removed for the Nazi Holocaust is completely lunatic. Hold on. Wait, he's not blaming them for the Holocaust. He's saying that from the perspective. Yes, of course he is. Wait. No. He's saying that from the perspective of Jews in the region, Palestinians would have been part of the... That's not what he's saying. That is exactly what he said. You've not read him. I've read him. You've read him and you don't understand him. He's sitting right here. Believe me, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Barelli. I'm going to believe the guy that wrote the stuff. You read what Wikipedia said. That's great. I read Benny Morris. And you don't even speak Hebrew and you call yourself an Israeli historian. We're all on different grounds, okay? Moeen says, if I could just respond to you. Now, I'm not sure what he wants to respond to exactly. I suspect, because it's right after he says, and you don't even speak Hebrew and you call yourself an Israeli historian. He doesn't call himself an Israeli historian. He doesn't speak Hebrew. He mentioned that before. He talked about how he's like, I don't read the Hebrew literature. I don't read Hebrew. Right? He says I only know I'm only expert in what's been published in English. But I'm pretty damn sure that Norman Finkelstein wouldn't refer to himself as an Israeli historian. He is a legal scholar, international law. I don't know. That's fucking funny. Anyway, he's just trying to attack. He's just lashing out. He's just angry. You don't even speak Hebrew. So Rabbani looks directly at Stephen and he says, if I could respond to you. Stephen goes, well, no. I'm just saying that there were two tricks. There were two tricks that are being played here that I think is interesting. One is you guys claim that the Lehi was trying to forge an alliance with Nazi Germany because of a shared ideology. That's what they said. Yeah, but hold on. No, wait, no. It's about what you said. You brought up that to imply that Zionism must be inexorably linked. Stephen's just like, no, but the implication of that piece of evidence somehow makes it what? A trick? That's a trick. You tricked us. You're trying to trick us by bringing up that evidence. And by bringing up that evidence, you're trying to somehow imply that your argument is true, that your conclusion is true. That's a trick. Let's listen to this.
Even understand of all the crimes you want to ascribe to the Palestinian people, trying to blame them directly, indirectly, or indirectly 3 times removed for the Nazi Holocaust is completely lunatic.
Hold on. Wait, he's not blaming them for the Holocaust. He's saying that from the perspective, no. He's saying that from the perspective of Jews in the region, Palestinians would have been part of the region. That is exactly
You have not read him.
What he said.
I've read him.
You've read him, you don't understand him. He's sitting right here.
Believe me, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr.
Yeah, but hold on. No, wait. No. It's about what you said. You brought that up to imply that Zionism must be inexorably linked to...
I'm sorry. You're putting words in my mouth.
No. Okay, wait. Well, then what was the purpose of saying that the Lehi claimed that the Lehi, who were a small group of people that were reviled by many in Israel...
Not many, by everybody practically.
Well,
they were called terrorists.
Reviled.
The Zionist movement called them terrorists.
Yes.
So
and hunted them.
And Shamir called himself a terrorist. They were so irrelevant that their leader ended up being kicked upstairs to the leader of the Israeli parliament,
That's Israeli
to
politics
the
50 years hence.
to Israeli foreign minister.
And Begin was also
yes. You want to characterize him as irrelevant as well? Go ahead.
No. Characterize him as relevant or irrelevant based on what happens decades later. The timeline matters.
Well,
the question.
All right, we'll go to there. 115. So, what were the two tricks? There are two tricks that are being played here. Let's go back to that.
And hunted them.
And
hunted them.
Shared ideology.
Called him
movement called
in Israel.
No.
It's about jerks that are being played here. No. I'm just saying that the Israel guy that wrote
You
the
read
stuff.
what Wikipedia said.
That's great.
I
And you don't even
Benny
speak
Morris.
Hebrew, and you call yourself an Israeli historian. We're all here on different grounds. Okay?
I just want, if I can just respond.
Well, no. I'm just saying that there were two tricks. That's fine. There were two tricks that are being played here that I think is interesting. One is you guys claim that the Leahy was trying to forge an alliance with Nazi Germany because of a shared ideology.
That's what they said.
Yeah, but hold on. No. Wait. No. It's about what you said. You brought that up to imply.
It's about what you said. You brought that up to imply. You brought that up to imply. No, why did he bring that up? Rabbani brought that up as a response to you bringing up, or to Benny Morris bringing up al-Husseini. Right? This whole thing started over here. And if I may also, just one point you mentioned, Hajj al-Min al-Husseini during World War II, entirely legitimate. But what I would also point out is that you had a Zionist organization, the Lehi, 300 people. 300 people, one of whom happened to become an Israeli prime minister, proposing an alliance with Nazi Germany in 1941. Okay, that's all he argued. After that, Benny's just, blah, 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 blah. They were very small. They were very unimportant. Okay. That's fine. But the facts are what the facts are. What they proposed an alliance, or they signed an agreement, and it was written in paper in black and white, and it says some shit. Shared ideological principles. And he's like, at the same time that he wants to minimize, no, this group is very hated and very unimportant, and also, no, they didn't. He wants to deny them, or he wants to defend them, but also keep them at arm's reach, saying, no, it was a very small, very hated group of people. They were hunted, actually. We hunted them. We hunted them for doing that. No, they were traitors that we hunted. Don't get it twisted, dude. We hunted these fucks like animals. The animals they are. I swear, we were the good guys. So he's just like, he's just defending this thing. And then he's like, that's what they said. And then he's like, you like to quote facts. Forget that. Forget statements. Are you saying that they were Nazis? What do you mean? We're saying what the fact is. They made an agreement that said they had shared ideology with Nazi Germany. That's all they said. Like, that's what the statement said. What did it say? What did the agreement say? They said they wanted help against the British. Yeah, everyone said that. Everyone hates the British. Not every anti-Semite is a Hitlerite. So, Stephen, he literally worked with Nazis. This guy wasn't a guy... He wasn't just a guy posting. I don't know what he's trying to say there. Hold on, wait. He's not blaming them for the Holocaust. He's saying that from the perspective. Wait. No. He's saying that from the perspective of Jews in the region, Palestinians would have been part of the... That's not what he's saying. It's exactly what he said. You've not read him. I've read him. You've read him and you don't understand him. He's sitting right here. You've read him and you don't understand him. I listen to him when he speaks out both sides of his ass and contradicts himself and ignores shit that he knows goddamn well exists in terms of evidence. I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Barelli. Fucking get his ass, Norm. Get his ass. I'm going to believe the guy wrote stuff. You don't even speak Hebrew and you call yourself an Israeli historian. We're all on different grounds. And then when Rabbani's like, let me get a fucking word in, Stephen absolutely disrespectfully is just like, no. You shut up. I'm just going to babble. I'm going to babble. What I'm just saying that there were two tricks. In fact, you're taking that fact and then trying to run around with what's implied by that and saying like, well, that argument can't be true because look at what it implies. Look at what it would imply. That can't be true because that would mean that the Zionists are like Nazis. Right? He's saying like, I can't even, that can't be true because the conclusion is something I really, really don't like. And it's like, well, whatever, man. We have facts. Sorry if you don't like them. Sorry, not sorry. Let's listen to that again.
I've read what he said.
I've read
blaming them for the Holocaust.
Yes,
but the problem is you're saying that
I don't even understand of all the crimes you want to ascribe to the Palestinians.
I don't understand him. He sits right here.
Believe me, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Barelli.
I'm going to believe the guy that wrote the stuff.
You read what Wikipedia said.
That's great. And you don't even speak Hebrew, and you call yourself an Israeli historian. We're all here on different grounds. Okay?
I just want, if I can just respond.
Well, no, I'm just saying that there were two tricks. That's fine. There were two tricks that are being played here that I think is interesting. One is you guys claim that the Leahy was trying to forge an alliance with Nazi Germany because of a shared ideology.
That's what they said.
Yeah, but hold on. No, wait. No. It's about what you said. You brought that up to imply that Zionism must be inextricably linked to...
I'm sorry. You're putting words in my mouth.
No. Okay, wait. Well, then what was the purpose of saying that the Leahy claimed that the Leahy, who were a small group of people that were reviled by many in Israel...
Not many, by everybody practically.
Well,
they were called terrorists.
So reviled.
The Zionist movement called them terrorists.
Yes.
So
and hunted them.
And Shamir called himself a terrorist. They were so irrelevant that their leader ended up being kicked upstairs to the leader of the Israeli parliament.
That's Israeli politics.
To the
50 years hence.
To Israeli foreign minister.
And Begin was also
yes. You want to characterize him as irrelevant as well? Go ahead.
No. Characterize him as relevant or irrelevant based on what happens decades later. The timeline matters.
Well,
the question is, what is the point of saying that the Leahy tried to forge an alliance?
Why is relevant is bringing up the Mufti of Jerusalem and trying to blame the Holocaust.
The Mufti was the leader of the Palestine Arab National Movement. The Leahy was 300 people.
And he had as much to do with the Nazi Holocaust as I did.
No, he recruited people for the SS. How can you get away from that?
No, he recruited
people
soldiers.
for the SS.
He recruited soldiers in the Balkans, mostly Kosovars, which was disgusting. I have no doubt about that. But he had
He also wrote letters to foreign ministers saying, "Don't let the Jews out."
I knew
The
Raoul
whole-
Can I say? Can I say?
Hungarian foreign minister,
I
the
knew
Italian
Raoul
foreign
Hil-
minister received letters from Husseini during
One
the
sentence.
Holocaust.
One
During the
sentence in
Holocaust,
destruction
don't
of
let the
European
Jews out. Don't let the Jews
If
out.
I-
I'm not saying he
That's
was a
true.
major
He wasn't
architect of
even
the Holocaust.
minor.
But if
One
we're agreed,
sentence.
if we're agreed
Yeah.
that Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, did with the Nazis
Yes.
during World War II and actively sought their sponsorship, why is it irrelevant?
And probably wanted the destruction of European Jewry.
He probably wanted a lot of things.
Okay.
Okay. If that's relevant, why is it irrelevant that a prime minister of Israel?
Not prime minister. In 1941, he wasn't prime minister of Israel. He was a leader of a very small terrorist group.
So do you consider
denounced as terrorists by the mainstream of
do
Zionism.
you consider it irrelevant that many years ago Mahmoud Abbas wrote a doctoral thesis, which is basically
It showed something
tantamount
about Mahmoud Abbas.
Okay, but
I
this-
didn't bring it up. You're the one who's bringing
Yes,
it up.
but
That he
you
wrote
consider
things
that
belittling
relevant.
the Holocaust. That's what you're saying. The president of the Palestinian National Authority belittled the Holocaust, said it didn't happen, or only a few Jews died.
I think that's a fair characterization of.
But I didn't
Mahmoud
bring it up.
Abbas. I brought it up.
Man, so Stephen and Benny are really making a meal out of such a simple fucking point. It's like, you brought up this fool? Well, we can say this guy's also relevant because they're basically parallel arguments. They're just like case studies and trying to determine how important they were / for the Nazis.
Illegitimate to bring up a man who would become Israel's Speaker of Parliament, Foreign
30 years
Minister.
hence, 40 years
Yes,
hence.
why is it? And also
He was a young terrorist.
and was also responsible for the murder of the United Nations' first international envoy, Bernadotte, Foki Bernadotte. Why is all that irrelevant?
I don't think anybody.
I don't
would say-
understand.
I think that the reason why he was brought up was because Jewish people in this time period would have viewed it as there's a prevention of Jews leaving Europe because of the Palestinians pressuring the British to put a curb that 75,000 immigration limit. Yes, but it's not about them furthering the Holocaust or being an architect, major or minor play in the Holocaust. But he was a major player in that region. So if you wanted to bring up
Benny Morris was made the specific claim that the Palestinians played an indirect role in the Holocaust.
The indirect role would have been the prevention of people escaping from Europe to
and my
Palestine.
response to that is, first of all, I disagree with that characterization. But second of
How
all,
can you disagree with that? They forced the British to prevent emigration of Jews from Europe and reaching.
They forced the British. Those sneaky Palestinians. You know what they did? They took the British and they twisted their arm and they say, "You better not let any Jews in here." That sounds super plausible. Oh, Professor, that sounds a little suspect. Professor, how the fuck? How the fuck? Just how the fuck? That's my question. I'll hang up and take my answer off air. Thank you. How the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, God.
They prevented.
Disagree with that characterization. But second of all,
How can you disagree?
Of people escaping from
and
Europe to
my
Palestine.
response to that is, first of all, I disagree with that characterization. But second of
How
all,
can you disagree with that? They forced the British to prevent emigration of Jews from Europe and reaching safe shores in Palestine. That's what they did.
Again,
and they knew that the Jews were being persecuted in Europe.
Was
at the time.
Palestine the only spot of land on earth?
Yes, basically that was the problem. The Jews couldn't emigrate anywhere else.
What about your great friends in Britain, the architects of the Balfour Declaration?
By the late 1930s,
what about the United
weren't
States?
happy to take in Jews, and the Americans weren't happy to take in Jews.
And why are Palestinians who were not Europeans, who had zero role in the rise of Nazism, who had no relation to any of this. Why are they somehow uniquely responsible for
Because
what
they were-
The
happened?
United States wasn't a potential safe haven. The only one was Palestine. The only one was Palestine.
At the
The
time.
United States had none.
At the
The
time.
United States had no room
No,
from
it did
the
have
Atlantic
room.
to
It
Pacific
did have
for
room.
Jews.
It did have room, but it didn't
So
want
that
Jews.
wasn't the
But it didn't
only
want Jews.
safe haven.
This is
But
something
shouldn't you be focusing your anger and
America
outrage?
should be blamed for not letting Jews in during the 30s
They are
and 40s.
blamed, but nobody blames them.
I still don't
Let's not beat the
understand.
dead horse.
Yeah. Conclude by saying, I don't understand why the Mufti of Jerusalem is relevant.
He is relevant. He is relevant.
The national movement I think Benny Morris is because was not a leader of the national movement. He was a member of a Palestinian nationalist movement and activist. He wasn't always a Palestinian nationalist activist. I think he had some other, let's look him up. Husseini. Because I think there's a big difference between saying the national movement and a nationalist movement. Because there were various groups of varying ideologies, Palestinian independence or something like that, right? Are we back? Okay, remember he was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Which means he was the religious Muslim leader of the city. And he was appointed that by British authorities.